if you're here, my guess is that this man over here, he's been causing you some headache. So in 3 simple stages, we'll figure out how to slap him. Let's get started. All right, the first stage is the basics, right? We'll just talk about gear, weapons, what you should do, how to start, and how to approach. If you feel like you don't need the basics, then I've timestamped the video so you can just skip right ahead to the fighting parts. All right, firstly, you want to make sure that you have a decent weapon. So make sure to go for a weapon that has a high deflect difficulty percentage, and make sure the weapon's got decent enough attack with a good attack speed. This guy doesn't give you a lot of opportunities to get a good hit off, so make sure it's fast and hits hard and has high enough deflect chances. All right, those are the top 3 you need to look out for when picking a weapon. All right, moving on, next we need to have a look at the armor that you're picking and why you pick it, and make sure you're equipped to handle his hits, because the motherfucker hits like a bull. So what I'd recommend is you go through the list of armor that you have. Everyone should have a shit ton, because the game likes giving out 50 item pieces per mission. So equip the heaviest armor you can with the highest defense and fire resistance available, while making sure the character overall weight is still in the yellow, as if it goes into red, that means you won't be able to deflect anymore, which will just lead to you getting bullied. I'd also recommend making sure you've collected all the fortitude flags around the map. Just try and make sure you have those maxed out, because it reduces the damage he does by quite a bit. I've seen people say that reinforcements is probably a good option considering how difficult he is, but in my experience, they didn't really help out. If anything, they hindered me more. They go down constantly, and every single time you decide to go and attempt to res on them, it just leads to an opportunity where you get hit. So I'm not a big fan of using them. If you do want to use them, then I would recommend not attempting to res them, or at least not unless you're 100% sure you're not going to get hit. A lot of the times with reinforcements, it ends up getting more confusing because you can't tell who he's actually going for, what he's planning on doing, and most of his hit radiuses are long enough that they reach multiple people. So the reinforcements end up going down really quickly anyway. As you can see, a lot of the hits that I got was while resing them, and it was just slowing down my progress even more. So I, in the end, decided to drop them all together instead of wasting time with them. Now to talk about the actual fight. It first starts off with him in a horse phase. He goes back into it at some point throughout the fight as well. It's probably the easier of the 2 phases. The first thing you want to do is make sure you always have your block up. Holding your block basically just gives you some breathing room. Let's say you mess up on your deflect. The block ends up taking most of the damage and prevents you from actually getting hit. Sometimes in the later stages the fire seeps through, but even that is minuscule compared to what he normally does. So rule of thumb in this fight is always have your block up when deflecting. Most importantly, his orange bar, his stance breaking, whatever you want to call it, it goes down really slowly, so never rush in with him. You need to be patient and wait for the right opportunities. Deflect, deflect, deflect until you get the right time to hit him. You also want to make use of all of his heavy attacks. So on his horse, he's got 2 red moves. The first one is this one, where he just charges at you. Your best bet is deflecting into him at the right time. Usually when he does this one, you have a few seconds to hit him a couple times and hit him with a heavy attack of your own. The second red move of his is he jumps into the air and jumps down at you. And with this one, generally, if you do get a counter off, you have enough time to get maybe 1 hit and you're heavy in, or maybe just your heavy, as he recovers quite quickly and runs off from this one. If you manage to get 2 counters off on those red attacks, he'll get off his horse, provided that you do land your hits on him as well with the heavy attacks following it. Now that the little prick is off his high horse, we can move on to stage 3. Unfortunately, it just gets a lot worse from here. Stage 3, man on man. He gets down on the ground and charges at you like a fucking freak. He ends up having 3 red moves that you need to watch out for mostly. 2 of them quite similar to the moves in the first stage, just with slight time altercations between them. Alright, after the first time you get him off his horse, he will always go in for this red heavy attack, right? He will do the same thing as the one before where he jumps into the sky and lands on you. The only difference is he ends up taking a bit longer on his way down compared to the first one. So it kind of fucks with your head a little bit where you're used to the timing of the first one. But you need to get into the habit of realizing when he's not on his horse, he's a bit more floaty. Even if it's by a little bit, but it ends up fucking with your timings if you don't realize that. And same with the second move, right? So he does the same move as when he's on the horse, more or less, where he ends up charging at you. But again, it's slower in this mode, guessing because he's not on his horse and has to actually walk around the lazy fuck. But he's a lot slower in this one compared to when he's on a horse and he rapidly charges at you. Finally, he actually has one original move where he doesn't basically copy his stance from his horse, is this one. So you can tell when he's about to do this is when he does the little ballerina twirl around in a circle, as opposed to when he's doing the charge, he spins in front of him and not in a full 360 degree, right? You'll need to make sure that you can distinguish between the two of them, because that's what's going to catch you off most of the time, is when you won't be able to tell if he's about to do the drag attack or he's about to do the ballerina twirl and stab you. As long as you get the timings right on these red counters, the rest of the fight will be fairly easy, considering that you're blocking and deflecting in between as well. You just want to make sure to reduce the amount of damage you take through those. These red attacks will chunk away a massive amount of his stance break, and every single time you get a stance break, you'll get a shit ton of damage in. Alright, so to be safe, I'd recommend just spending a few attempts, ironing out the kinks, and getting used to the red timing and deflecting, because you will need to deflect those without a doubt. Bonus stage talking about the stuff in between the red attacks to make it a little bit more manageable and a bit more predictable. Try and keep getting deflects off until you've got your spirit gauge charged enough to land a decent heavy attack to chunk away at his stance break. I would say it's not really worth doing regular attacks unless you've already got him in a stance break or he's down on his back or something, right? But most of the time, just try and keep deflecting until you have a decent spirit gauge. Half to max is a good spot, and then hit him with a Y attack. Even if that means doing a trade-off, it's probably going to be worth most of the time, depending on the attack. From time to time, he's going to do this little lunge where he comes jumping at you with an overhead as a regular attack. That's usually a good opportunity to unleash your Y attack or get a couple good hits in. My recommendation would be charge up your spirit gauge, and when you see him doing the overhead, deflect that and then get a Y attack in to chunk away at his stance break. And finally, don't underestimate the block again. Make sure you're always blocking. You'll be surprised at how many different attacks of his you can negate just by blocking, even if you don't get the deflection on time. Always try and deflect, obviously, but if you can't, the block will go a long way. He will end up getting slight chip damage in from his flame attacks, even if you block, but they're minuscule. They really don't matter. You can just ignore that and continue on fighting. But yeah, keep all of that in mind, and eventually, my guess is you'll end up slapping him. You just need to get used to it, learn his timings, and the next thing you know, you'll have him on his knees running away from the fight. So, peace out, and best of luck.